another video. I hope everyone is doing well. So I thought, why don't we go through today some tests which you can do at home, some things that you can do to get some insight on your health, which are free, that's a really important word, or at the very least are very, very inexpensive to do. Regardless if I am carrying out a test with a client in practice, I still do these little tests and little tools with my clients because these little free things that you can do at home, they definitely, from my perspective, can back up what I'm already thinking and just kind of reconfirm, my decision to want to test in a certain direction. But also, and the most important part of this, is they also continue just to give me more insight into that person's health. And when I go through these little tools and things with my clients, a lot of these, my clients are like, I've never even heard to do that. These things look into things like thyroid function, iron status, stomach acid status, and also maybe mineral and vitamin deficiencies. So I hope you guys find this video helpful and interesting, and if you do, please do remember to give it a thumbs up to let me know. But digestive symptoms are very, very common for me to see in practice, particularly issues just around that digestive process. So that could be reflux issues with like heartburn, indigestion, that kind of sensation. Also bloating is another one. And something that I'm always like considering and thinking about is, what is this person's stomach acid like? Of course, when you're thinking about a digestive perspective, you also want to think about like the action of things like digestive enzymes and all the other properties that are going to, contribute to breaking down those foods. But stomach acid is always something which I am wondering, okay, I wonder what those levels are like. And also a really interesting little fact, and what's the word, correlation, I guess to say, is that particularly with acne as well, we also can see a link to low stomach acid and acne as well. So yes, this is definitely something that I'm interested to have a look at, and something that you can do at home is called the baking soda test. So what you do is you take a teaspoon of baking soda into 4 ounces, about half a glass of water, and then you take that on an empty stomach, and basically you just see how long it takes you to burp. If you burp instantly, we know that that stomach acid is going to be obviously at an adequate level. But if it takes you 3 minutes or maybe 5 minutes or more to burp, or maybe you might not even get a burp out, then we know we are dealing with some kind of low level of stomach acid. So that is a very simple at-home test that you can do just to see where that stomach acid is sitting. I do need to make it clear that the tests that I'm going through in today's video, these aren't essentially diagnostic tests. It's not like, if you get a certain answer, that's it, there you go, you're diagnosed. No, these are tests which are just going to give you an indicator, essentially if you're barking up the right tree, but also kind of help steer you, keep, going in the right direction with something. So for example, with the baking soda test, if you are thinking, I feel like there's something going on with my stomach and my acid, and you're kind of got questions around that, this is a test you can do at home to maybe confirm those thoughts and then further, support you wanting to look down that route a bit further. Okay, test number 2. This is actually one of my favorites. I do this so often with clients, and this is the basal temperature test for your thyroid. Now, your thyroid is a gland that really plays a big role in your temperature regulation. So actually paying attention to your basal temperature can give us a little bit of insight of maybe how the thyroid could be functioning. So with the basal temperature test, you need to get yourself a thermometer. Most people just have these at home anyway, so you might already own one, but if not, they're really inexpensive to get. So you need a thermometer, and basically all you have to do is for 3 mornings in a row, you want to take your temperature as soon as you wake up. You can't get out of bed, go for a wee, and then come back and do it. You need to literally wake up, grab that thermometer and take your waking temperature, okay? And do that for 3 mornings in a row. Once you have those 3 readings, you can then look and see what, that kind of average reading is. And then from that, we can then compare it to what we're looking at optimally. So optimally, your temperature should be around 36.6 when waking. If your temperature comes up on the low side, then that could indicate that the thyroid is struggling to function. So you're kind of a little bit more on the under functioning side. If, however, it comes up on the elevated and high side, then it could be the opposite, that maybe your thyroid is producing too much thyroid hormone. Maybe you're kind of going on that overactive side. So again, not a diagnostic, but it can be so helpful. I use this one really frequently because sometimes I do want to do thyroid testing, and again, like with the price tag to it, if it is a bit of a stretch of someone's budget, this is something I start with. And then if it comes back and that temperature is really low, I'm like, right, no, this is, let's put the money in this area and let's really really look into this. Something I do need to say about this test though, if you are a woman doing this, is of course be mindful that your temperature does rise after ovulation, so in your luteal phase. So I would actually say if you can, do it in your follicular phase so you can get that true reading which isn't being influenced by ovulation increasing your temperature. And another thing I just want to add to this as well is that having a thermometer at home can also be so helpful if you are trying to look into your hormones, and particularly if you're trying to see if you're ovulating. Definitely if you're like looking at your fertility or trying and planning for a baby, then tracking your temperature over a month can be so helpful, because basically when you ovulate your temperature rises and then it will stay elevated until you come on your period. So by tracking that over a month, you can start to see if you are having those peaks and if that ovulation is occurring. I will just say though, if you are using it for that purpose, you want to make sure you get a thermometer that goes to 2 decimal points, because for that you do want to have a really sensitive reading. Okay, so the next little like test or indicator, however you want to call it, that you can do is something just to see how your iron status could be. So this is actually to do with your nails. There's actually a couple things around iron, so I'll go over all of them, but let's start with the one with the nails. So this test is really simple. It's basically you hold down your nail, and when you put pressure on top of your nail, the nail bed should go white where you're pushing down. And then when you release your finger, that blood should rush back into that nail and go back to your red-pink colour. Now, with the test, basically, if your iron stores are good, when you release your finger off that nail, that blood should rush back instantly. If, however, you take your finger off that nail and the blood takes a little bit, a couple of seconds really, to come back, it's not coming back instantly, it's just taking a little bit of time to fully come back, that can give a little bit of an indication that maybe someone's iron stores are on the low side. So that is test number 1 for the iron. Test number 2 for the iron is you can also, in general, you're gonna see what we call pallor. So actually looking at your face, if you feel like you're really drained in color. I mean, yes, you can have a pale skin tone, but I'm talking like you feel like just your natural skin tone is also drained. You might even say you feel like you look a bit gray on that kind of side of the spectrum. That can be a sign. And the other one that you can look at is on the insides of your eyes. So if you pull down, look in a mirror and then pull down the bottom of your eye and look at the color inside that eyelid, if that is very pale and not very red at all, it should be like a pinky, you kind of see mine from the distance, like a pinky red color. But if you go like that and it's very pale, that can also be an indication that iron is also suffering. And the last place you can also see is also in the tongue. Like if you feel like, it's hard because I can't speak and put my tongue out at the same time, but if you look at your tongue in the mirror and you also notice that is also looking quite pale, and that's not the coating, because I do know obviously you can have a pale coating on the top, but if you remove the coating, scrape your tongue, and your tongue in general is quite pale, then that can be a sign also that your iron is depleted. Okay, so the next thing I want to touch on is looking at your tongue. This is definitely a very traditional Chinese medicine kind of diagnostic tool essentially, but your tongue can actually really give you so much insight, and it's absolutely fascinating. I'm not going to go through everything because there is literally a whole world of the tongue. You could do a whole video just on that alone, and do feel free, if you're interested in this, Google into it, because you can get some really great graphs and diagrams of all the different tongue types and what that could mean. But I'm just going to go over what are some of the most common ones that I see in practice and the things that I think are really helpful for you to know and look out for. So number 1 is when you stick your tongue out, if your tongue shakes and you get a tremor with it, then that can actually indicate a magnesium deficiency. So that's always something good to bear in mind. I tell you another one with that as well is if you ever get that eye twitch, if your eye starts twitching, that can also be a bit of a sign for magnesium deficiency. Also B12 actually can also make your eye twitch. Right, back to the tongue. The next thing that I definitely pay attention to in people's tongues is definitely any cracks, okay? When you stick out your tongue, you shouldn't have indentations and deep cracks and splits in the tongue. If you do, when you look at it, then that is also giving you an insight on your health. So depending where the crack is, that can also tell you what kind of organ, for example, is struggling. The ones that I see the most common is the crack in the middle. So right in the middle of the tongue, and this is what we call our stomach crack. So if you see that, then you want to be thinking, oh, what's that stomach health like? If the crack goes to the tip of the tongue, tongue, then you also want to be thinking cardiovascular, okay? So they're the two that I really see the most common in terms of cracks. Definitely that middle crack is really the most common one. The next thing as well about indentations, again, another really common thing that I see is what we call scalloping on the tongue edge. I'll put a picture of this so you know what I'm talking about, but it's basically indentations around the edge of the tongue. This can indicate digestive implications. It can also link to pancreatic function, and also if someone has got maybe like a lot of fatigue and they've got a lot going on with their nervous system and like just nervousness as well, actually as an emotion going on, that can also be a cause of those indentations as well. But definitely you want to be thinking digestion for sure. I see that as a really common link with that. The next thing I definitely pay attention to is any coatings. So you shouldn't have any like thick coatings, for example, on the tongue. And if you are, you know, I know everyone does tongue scraping, or not everyone, but I know a lot of people do tongue scraping, which is fantastic, but you do want to pay attention, like, actually, is that an issue? Like, is the tongue scraping obviously helping and getting rid of it, but are you actually waking up with thick coating on your tongue every single day? Like, that actually can be a sign that maybe digestion is impaired a little bit and there's something going on there within that gut microbiome. That can also be linked with like things like yeast overgrowth as well, so that can cross over more into like that candida spectrum. So yeah, definitely things to be paying attention to. And then also the color of the tongue, like I said earlier, you know, if it's pale, then you might want to be thinking more in the iron deficiency region. Or if the tongue is more towards that purple side, then you want to be thinking, what is that person's circulation like? Is there a stagnation, circulation issue going on there? And another one I'll just throw in for the mouth area, which I also can see quite common, is if you get those slits, like, you know, like the painful slits on the side of the mouth. They're not cold sore, I'm just talking about like the slits right in the corner. These can also be signs of B vitamin deficiencies, particularly B12. Also, there's actually a stomach link to that, and B12 is actually influenced by our intrinsic factor in our stomach. So sometimes if someone's got a low intrinsic factor in the stomach, that can also be causing the issues there in the corner of the mouth. So that's another little sign you can look out for. Okay, this next thing is something that you have to buy, but this is very, very inexpensive, and this is a way that you can actually test if you are zinc deficient and if it is something you should consider supplementing. When it comes to zinc, zinc is fine, you know, supplementing short term, but you don't want to be supplementing zinc long term, because zinc does compete with other certain vitamins and minerals for its absorption pathways. So long term, if you're taking zinc in a higher dose, actually you could then end up affecting other absorptions of vitamins and minerals and then becoming deficient in other things, and that causes problems. So you do want to know if you actually do need it. And doing a zinc test, so this is a solution, this is by Lambert's, like I said, really, really inexpensive, but basically you can get, I think other brands will do them definitely as well, but basically it's a solution which you pop into your mouth, you swish it round, you spit it out, and depending on the taste of it, that basically can tell you if you are zinc deficient. Zinc is a very like taste driven mineral in terms of like symptoms. So like when you do this test, basically if you swish it around and it is like just not a nice experience in the mouth, that's just going to tell you that zinc's good, basically. If you swish this around your mouth, you spit it out and you're like, that was like water, then we know that your zinc is struggling, and that would be something maybe to consider. I'm going to leave that there then, today's video. I really hope that all this information, there's been things in here that you might find helpful and might try, and it might just help steer you in the right direction with your journey. So if you did find this video helpful, please do give it a thumbs up to let me know, and if there's any videos you'd like to see, please do let me know in the comments as well. Just let you guys know there won't be a video next Sunday, just because I've got family over this week and I just don't know if I'm going to be able to find the time to get a video together. I will try if I can, but I'm just not promising it. I just want to let you know ahead of time there might not be a video next week. So if that is the case, I will see you guys the week after, and come follow me over on Instagram, because I'm always putting a lot more information out over there, and that's more on a regular basis. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you aren't already, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Mwah. Bye.